I am very big on pushing yourself when you get up to higher speeds. Like, as long as everything sounds good, that's the most important part. To me, that's my approach. Argue all you want, that's fine. But if it sounds good, even if it feels kind of off at first, so what? As long as you're not experiencing any weird twinges of pain and like something feels like literally wrong with your body, you should be fine. Because you can't grow if you feel comfortable. You have to have some kind of discomfort or being out of your comfort zone in order to improve. If you're always staying comfortable, you will not improve. You have to get outside your comfort zone to some degree in order to make improvements. You have to. Secret to staying relaxed when you play guitar fast. Now, some people, when they think about how I play, they consider me a fast player. So, I'm wondering, do I know this secret that this man is about to explain? The name of the YouTube channel is How to Practice Guitar. And, I forgot to mention, what is this? This is number 7? Reaction number 7 for coattail riding. So let's get into it. As always, I have not watched this before, so every reaction you get is genuine. Here we go. Let's see what the secret is.
One of my all-time favorite movies is the movie Scarface, and there's a great scene in that movie where Tony Montana, played by Al Pacino, talks to his friend Manny, and he explains his life philosophy to him in 3 sentences. He says this:
This country, you gotta make the money first. Then when you get the money, you get the power. Then when you get the power, then you get the woman.
Now, as badass as this clip is, let's not forget that this is just a movie. And the reason I bring this up is because, unfortunately, many guitar players seem to approach building speed on guitar in kind of the same way, where when it comes to playing fast and being relaxed at that speed, to approach that goal, people think that they need to hit it in layers. First, they want to get their hands moving at the tempo they want, and then they work on making their playing be more relaxed at that tempo. And then they work on making their playing be more consistent at that tempo, and then they work on their playing be cleaner at that tempo. Not necessarily in that order, but
yeah, the idea of like being fast and then polishing it up after you're fast. My thing is, if you're doing a sloppy 200 plus whatever, well, then you're not doing it because it's sloppy. If it's not played accurately, you're not really doing it. You might be doing something kind of like what you want to do, but a big thing for me is, don't chase the speed. Don't make speed your number one thing first and like try and just move quickly if you're trying to do things that sound good. For the most part, what I tell students now is chase the accuracy, not the speed. Speed is just a byproduct of playing accurately at faster and faster tempos. So the goal is to be accurate and then try being as accurate as you can at a faster tempo, so like gradually going faster and faster. So the argument against starting with the speed versus building up to it with accuracy is sometimes people do get stuck in kind of a rut, or they get in their own way and think they have to only move a certain way to go faster, such as only using a specific wrist motion. They stay away from any kind of elbow stuff. They don't experiment with trying different positions in terms of like how their elbow is, how their shoulder is, how their wrist is, like how they're going out away from the strings and things like that. So I do believe, or do agree, that there is some merit to just figuring out how to move quickly. Once you can figure out like, okay, well, this feels good, moving quickly in this way. Like I can, just do like a single string thing and figuring out like, well, how can you move quickly in a way that feels good? Fretting hand, it really does feel different to me, getting the fretting hand moving quickly versus the picking hand. But even then, it's not a bad idea. Just like, drumming the fingers down. Because I know I got some students that have a very difficult time getting like legato going quickly. But I was thinking, if you could just drum your fingers fairly quick, it should translate over to the legato. So I think for a lot of people, there's like a psychological barrier, like they could like wiggle their fingers quickly and do stuff like that quickly, but as soon as they touch the guitar, like the pick hits the strings or the fingers hit the strings, just something happens where you just come to a grinding halt, and some people just have the damnedest time progressing forward. So if that's the case, if it feels like everything just slows down to a halt for you and you just are having the damnedest time working things up cleanly, you might be a person that could benefit from just, dicking around. We'll go with that phrase. Just dicking around, screwing around, and just like find out how can you move your picking hand quickly in a comfortable way, and how can you just kind of like move your fingers, like drum them down, doing the pull-offs here, just kind of moving the fingers back and forth quickly. Try and do the pull-offs here, do the hammer-ons, I'm not using the clicky sound really bad. So I just do all 4 fingers there. And just kind of trying to do stuff like that, I could see being beneficial for those who just feel like they can't move fast. Like, well, just experiment a little bit. Again, with different picking styles, using your wrist, using your arm. Just kind of try and loosen up that way. Just get used to moving quickly. If you're having the damnedest time actually hitting faster speeds. But then when it comes to metronome work, we do not sacrifice accuracy in the name of speed, because if you're not playing it accurately, then you're not playing it. So, let's continue.
In that basic sequence. That is entirely the wrong approach. What you want to do instead is establish a foundation of your playing already being very relaxed, very consistent and reliable, very clean, and in time at a very slow speed. And as you speed up your playing, you want to pay attention to these elements staying just as flawless every step of the way. Let me show you some examples of great players doing this when they practice so you can see what I mean. Take a look at this Michael Romeo clip. Compare the fast clip you just saw with this clip that I'm going to show in a second of him playing it very, very slowly in comparison at 70 BPM. Check it out. You may even go back and forth between the very fast playing and the very slow playing without my talking in between to compare the efficiency, the articulation, the cleanliness of the playing, and see that it does not change from very slow tempo to very fast tempo. After...
I like that point he made. No, I think he makes a great point there of, playing things accurately and well at slow tempo, and then making sure that you recreate, being accurate, slightly faster, slightly faster, slightly faster. The whole, looking at the hand at the fast pace and saying, look, there's no sign of tension anywhere. It's like, I don't know how you could tell if there was or not. I mean, I'm not saying that he had any tension when he was playing. Not at all. I've just thinking of my own experience where people will see clips on Instagram, whatever, and it feels fine to me. The people are like, oh, look at all that tension. Look how much tension he has. Like, as I've put before, when you're playing past 300 beats per minute, especially in the picking hand, and the fretting hand, depending on what it is, there's going to be some amount of tension. Because you can't flex your arm, you can't flex a muscle without tension happening. And I'm flexing my arm pretty hard in order to hit insane speeds, or speeds that a lot of people consider insane. So my thing is with tension is you have necessary and unnecessary tension. Necessary tension is absolutely essential when you're trying to go like that. Like, my right arm is not 100% relaxed doing this. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with that. Again, like especially when you start pushing your endurance and you're trying to take your physical limitations to its max, tension will set in. But there's a big difference between necessary and unnecessary tension. Now, if I'm like playing something at this pace, I'm going like, and I'm like flexing the hell out of everything. Yeah, that's unnecessary. We don't want that kind of tension. That's ridiculous. We don't want that sort of thing. So, anyway, let's continue. He's got good stuff, good points to make.
Up to 100, and once again, his playing looked just as relaxed, the notes sounded just as clean, as effortless, and as reliable and accurate as before. Here's another great example of everything we're talking about here, and this one is by the great Paul Gilbert. Now, I already analyzed this solo in a different video on my channel in the past, but I want to draw your attention here to one specific lick that deserves a closer look. Check it out. Now let's freeze frame and think this through. So first, look at how relaxed Paul's body is. Notice how his shoulders are relaxed. Notice how he's obviously not struggling or straining to play the lick at all. Now, notice also how he was really enjoying each note, even though the lick was played relatively slow. This is an important criteria that tells you if you're on the right track whether you're practicing or not. Even when you're playing slowly, each note should be enjoyable to play, to hear, and to feel. And I don't mean that in some abstract, woo-woo spiritual sense. I mean the feeling that you get when you hear licks or guitar playing that inspires you. You should feel that feeling, no matter if you're playing at 25% of your speed, 50, 75, or 100%. The feeling should always be there regardless of the tempo. If the feeling is not there, that's an indication, that's a red flag that something is off and you need to fix it. Either your playing feels harder than it should because you're too tense, or the hands are not totally in sync, the articulation isn't quite right, or whatever the case is, you got to get to the bottom of why you're not enjoying the sound of the notes, fix it, and that's going to move you in the right direction. But back to Paul. Notice how he plays it one more time, and then he begins to speed it up, and then he begins to speed it up even more a little bit later on. And notice how he feels and looks just as relaxed as he did when he played it the first time. There's basically no breakdown in the notes. They're just as clean, just as consistent, and everything feels just as smooth at faster speeds as it did at slower speeds. But it all starts with setting that foundation where all these elements are based.
Well, I'd also like to add about Paul Gilbert being very relaxed, going from slow to the fast tempos. He's also played that thing who knows how many times, thousands upon thousands of times, most likely. So, you know, when you're doing stuff like that and you've done perfect practice with a specific lick thousands and thousands of times, you're going to have a much better chance of staying and looking relaxed while you do it, because it's just muscle memory at that point. You don't have to put in any effort. So I am very big on pushing yourself when you get up to higher speeds. Like, as long as everything sounds good, that's the most important part. To me, that's my approach. Argue all you want, that's fine. But if it sounds good, even if it feels kind of off at first, so what? As long as you're not experiencing any weird twinges of pain and like something feels like literally wrong with your body, you should be fine. Because you can't grow if you feel comfortable. You have to have some kind of discomfort or being out of your comfort zone in order to improve. If you're always staying comfortable, you will not improve. You have to get outside your comfort zone to some degree in order to make improvements. You have to.
Into your slower playing and build that foundation of flawless technique we talked about, and then bring that foundation into your faster playing. That's the formula. And what I mean here, by the way, isn't the splitting of hairs, micro-level stuff that you have to see with your eyes or with a high-speed camera, like do they angle the pick this way or that way, or is their thumb positioned 1 degree here or 1 degree there? I don't mean that micro-level stuff. I mean on the macro level. How relaxed do they look? How clean does their playing sound? How consistent is their articulation of every single note? How tight is the timing? Those are the universal macro-level things that have to be in place for your speed to go up. up and for that speed to be consistent and reliable. And if you want more help with building your guitar speed, check out the link in the description of this video or go to the page on the screen right now. I'm going to show you a free 1-hour masterclass called Guitar Speed Formula. What it is a new way to build guitar speed without having to start slow and gradually build speed in small increments because, come on, that's a pretty boring way to practice.
Now wait a minute. Wasn't he basically saying that's what you're supposed to do? Like start slow and make sure everything sounds good and then go faster and faster? Perhaps I have misunderstood. I don't get it.
And more importantly, it doesn't work nearly as well as people tell you that it does. If you want to know a new way to build speed, check out the link, enter your email address, I'll say.
Right. So going slow and gradually building up doesn't work as well as people say. I'll put it this way, and I do want to make a video of this eventually because I want to promote that Metronome Method ebook that doesn't cost anything. There are reasons why metronome practice won't work, and I've gone over it a little bit there. Let's get into this whole building things up slowly with the metronome to get faster. I'll say this, like, I don't know how we can argue against this, but maybe somebody could. But if I didn't do all the metronome work I did, my guitar teacher taught me. Eric Morrison is his name. His school is Sac Valley Guitar. So anyone in the Sacramento area, you want in-person lessons, look that guy up. Sac Valley Guitar. He's the one that taught me how to get stupidly fast. How can the metronome not work? This whole idea of like going slow, whatnot. So, you know, I've talked with Troy Grady about this a few times. And we did discuss, or, you know, I brought up some concerns I had about like the way I teach people to use a metronome to go faster and faster, and how I use it to build my speed and whatnot. And he has a video up where he's also talked about like don't build up the speed, just start with it. Which in a way like I kind of did, but I did so at the same time as using the metronome to go faster and faster. So how could the metronome not work when trying to go faster and faster with it? As Troy and I have talked about, he has observed that people will try forcing a motion that is not built for speed, such as like using a thumb motion like this. Like you can't go crazy fast by doing that. Eventually bigger muscles have to kick in order to go insanely fast. So if you are not allowing your hand and your arm, wrist, and everything to do what it wants to do in order to hit faster speeds, then yes, metronome practice won't work for you, because if you don't allow your hands and everything to change the technique, the motions, things like that, well then it won't go any faster. You have to allow experimentation, adaptation as you go faster and faster, because when I'm playing slow speeds, it's not the same as medium and not the same as like super fast. Things change and you have to allow those changes to happen to go faster and faster. Doing the metronome stuff gives you something to shoot for. It's like you're trying to hit like 180 on something, then you're trying to hit 185 and trying to be accurate again at like 190. Try to be accurate at 195. Make it sound good every single step of the way. If you do too many repetitions of something, that can be a problem. For example, like some people will try and do like a 4-bar lick or riff, but they'll do it like 10 times, 20 times in a row before increasing the speed. Don't do that, because that's more of like an endurance thing, or perhaps like trying to get the technique, like the feel of some kind of technique, like I don't know, like some kind of sweep picking thing. And you just really want to make sure you're feeling everything well at a specific speed. That's fine, but that's not building speed. So that's another mistake people will do with metronome practice, is they try and play something way too many times before increasing that metronome speed. So if the name of the game is speed, you play something short. Think of it like sprinting. It has to be in a short burst before you go up again. So usually like 4 to 8 bars worth of something is plenty. And I always have myself, and I tell my students, start at 60 beats per minute. Play whatever it is you're working on correctly one time. It's got to be correct. It's got to be good enough to be on your album. Then go up 5 beats per minute and do it again. Don't play it 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, 80 times. Just one good one and go up. And you keep doing that over and over and over and over again. So you're slowly increasing things, which also gives you a chance to make sure that it does sound good, that everything is lined up correctly. Because we're not just pushing speed here, we're making sure that everything is lined up properly. There's so much about playing fast with accuracy, like is tied to rhythm. I worded that terribly. But another thing I find people being held back on is they can't hear it. So many times I've had students like think they reached a certain speed with a metronome, and then they play along to that speed, and it's like not even close. Even people like have shown me things online, like, "Hey, I'm doing the thing at this speed." Now listen to it, like, "No, you're not." Being able to hear things, hear those rhythms, whatnot, at fast tempos, could be something holding people back. So metronome practice definitely won't work if you can't hear it. If you can't follow that click, it's not going to work. If you can't accurately hear triplets and 16th notes at like really, really fast tempos, then it's not going to work, because if you can't hear it, you're not going to be able to play it. Other thing people do is they try and play too fast too soon. My rule of thumb is if you're working on a 16th note pattern, if you can't work it up to 120 beats per minute or beyond, you're not ready for it. A lot of people have told me, like, "Oh, I'm stuck at 90 beats per minute with this 16th note lick." Like, okay, well, you shouldn't be working on 16th notes then. You need to lower that to 8th notes. Work the 8th notes up from 60 to at least 240, and then you can go back to 16th notes. So that's another reason why metronome practice may not work for some people, is because they're jumping the gun. They're trying to do too many notes per click too soon. So they're just not prepared for it. So yeah, let me try and summarize reasons why metronome practice to build speed won't work. First of all, you're staying at the same speed for too long, and you're not pushing the metronome speed quickly enough. It needs to be short bursts of something, and you have to keep pushing faster and faster and faster every single time you play what you're working on correctly. Just one and done. Get it done right once, go faster. Once, faster. Once, faster. And keep going, going, and going, and going. And always end with a good take. Always end with a good take. Other reasons why. If you have subpar rhythmic skills, then you're not going to be able to hear things at fast tempos. You won't be able to accurately divide the beat up into whatever you're working on. So when that metronome's clicking, if you can't clearly hear that metronome click and lock onto that, how are you going to be able to play accurately with speed? You can't. And I see this time and time again with students I work with. And sometimes people can move very quickly, very fast, but put them to the metronome, they have no control over it. And that's a problem. So again, if you can't have control when you're using the metronome, then no, it's not going to work trying to go slow and gradually build up. So you need to have solid enough rhythm skills that you can hear the click fast and be able to divide up that click quickly. Not being accurate. Like moving the speed up of the metronome before you're ready. Playing a sloppy 200 something and then just trying to clean it up at that speed. Like, no, I don't think that's a very good way to do it. I do feel it's best to build it up slowly and accurately and always stay focused on the accuracy. And yes, that was the other thing, is not allowing your body to try new angles, different joint movements in order to go faster. So when I was building my speed up in the early years, I wasn't thinking I have to move this way or that way. I was just thinking I want to play these notes at this speed, and then I just tried to do it. And even still, I'll do things like I'll try and reposition my left wrist and arm and elbow and whatnot to be able to do certain things. I will reposition how my right hand is sitting. Like maybe I'll place it more over here, more over here. I might, try and go into this position or that position. I'll try and use more wrist. I'll try and use more arm. If I'm playing something, I can start with this position, but it gets too tiring, then I'll change over to this position because then I can do more. Or I can go longer in a different position. So you have to be willing to experiment as you go faster. Like, just because you hit a speed that's tough doesn't mean you just, I can't go past that. Well, try moving a little bit different and see if that allows you to go further. So I think that sums up what I was going on about there. Oh, I guess another thing with the whole idea of being uncomfortable, if you always stop trying to push yourself further just because you feel a little bit of tension set in, well, you're going to be in trouble, because there's a proper amount of tension, such as, you're feeling fatigued because you're pushing yourself and you're using your muscles often for a long period of time. I still get fatigued when I'm picking really damn fast for a long period of time, because that's just how it is. That's natural. So when you're picking fast for a long period of time and you get tired and fatigued, well, yeah, that's how it works. You can't sprint for a very long period of time, so why would you be able to pick and fret extremely fast for a long period of time? It's the same thing. That's just how bodies are. That's how the human body is. We have limitations.